Chapter 5, The Apple I. Turn on, boot up, jack in. Hey there, wealthy youngsters. Brace yourselves because this chapter is a thrilling roller coaster ride through the birth of something extraordinary. We're diving deep into the incredible journey of the Apple I, a game changer in the world of technology. Hold on tight, because in this adventure, you'll witness the clash of two brilliant minds, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, each with their unique ideas and passions. Get ready to explore the magical moment when Apple Computer became the chosen name for this remarkable invention. But that's not all. We'll also reveal how a partnership was formed and introduce you to the people who played crucial roles in this epic story. So, gear up, because this chapter is a whirlwind of creativity, innovation, and a pinch of rebellion. Let's get started. Woz's passion. Our story begins with a brilliant young man named Steve Wozniak, who earned the affectionate nickname Woz. Now, Woz was truly a remarkable individual. He possessed an extraordinary talent for engineering, a bit like having a superpower, but there was one thing about him: he was a bit shy when it came to talking in front of a crowd. You know, some people feel a bit nervous when they have to speak in front of others. Well, that's how Woz felt. So, there's Woz, this engineering genius, and even though he was a bit shy, he had something incredible to share with the world. He was a part of something special, a group of people who loved to tinker with computers and gadgets. They called themselves the Homebrew Computer Club, and it was like a club for people who were passionate about technology and building cool stuff. Woz was one of the brightest stars in this group, even though he wasn't the most talkative person in the room. His mind was always buzzing with ideas, especially about creating new and amazing things with computers. But there was something even more special about Woz. He had a big heart. He believed that information and knowledge should be free for everyone, and he wanted to help others as much as he could. So even though he was shy and not a big fan of speaking in public, Woz's passion for technology and his willingness to share his knowledge with others set the stage for an incredible adventure. This adventure would lead to the creation of one of the most famous and innovative companies in the world, Apple. Hacker ethic. Now let's talk about something fascinating: the hacker ethic. It's a bit like having a set of special rules or values for people who love playing around with computers and technology. The Homebrew Computer Club was a group of folks who were passionate about these things. And one of the most important rules they followed was to share information freely. Imagine if you had a secret superpower, like the ability to make amazing gadgets, and you decided to teach all your friends how to do it. That's a bit like the hacker ethic. They had this belief that information, like the knowledge to create cool stuff with computers, should be free. No secrets, no hiding. It's as if they were saying, hey, everyone should have a chance to learn and create amazing things. Now, here's where our hero, Woz, comes into play. He designed something really special, the Apple I computer. But what did he want to do with it? He wanted to give it away for free to help others. Can you believe it? He could have sold it and made lots of money, but instead he thought, I want everyone to have this, to learn, and to be creative. So, the idea of sharing, helping others, and not keeping everything for themselves was a big part of what drove these hackers. It's like they had a big, generous heart and believed that by sharing their knowledge and creations, they could make the world a better place. And you know what? They did just that. The world is filled with amazing technology today, thanks to people like Woz and the hacker ethic. The difference in beliefs? Now, here's where things get really interesting. We have two brilliant minds, Woz and Steve Jobs, who saw things differently. Woz was all about the give to help others philosophy. He had this amazing talent for creating awesome gadgets like the Apple I computer, and his heart said, let's share it with the world for free. He believed that by doing this, he could make a positive impact on people's lives. It's like saying, I have something cool, and I want everyone to have it so they can learn and enjoy. But here's where it gets intriguing. Steve Jobs, the other half of this dynamic duo, had a completely different view. He wasn't so keen on giving things away for free. No, he had a plan to sell these fantastic gadgets and make a profit. For him, it was all about business and making money. Imagine you had a magic lemonade recipe. Woz would want to share it with everyone, so they all enjoy the tasty lemonade. But Steve Jobs might think, let's sell this lemonade because it's so good and we can make some money from it. It's like the difference between sharing your toys with friends and trying to sell them in a cool lemonade stand. So, you see, these two friends had these opposite beliefs, yet they found a way to work together. Woz's generous spirit and genius inventions, combined with Jobs' business sense, would eventually lead to something amazing, the birth of Apple Incorporation. This company would change the world with incredible products, but the road to success was filled with exciting challenges. Jobs' persuasion? So, picture this. Steve Jobs and Woz are sitting together, discussing what to do with their amazing Apple I computer creation. Woz, being the kind-hearted genius he is, initially thought, let's share the blueprint of this incredible machine with the world for free. It's like he wanted to give everyone the recipe for his magical lemonade. But then comes Steve Jobs, the master persuader. He had a different idea. He told Woz, hold on, buddy. What if, instead of just handing out the secret recipe, we make and sell the finished product? People might not have the time or skills to make it themselves, so we can offer it to them. This was like suggesting they set up a lemonade stand and sell that fantastic lemonade instead of just sharing the recipe. This is where their unique partnership began to take shape. Woz, the brilliant engineer, had the knowledge to create these incredible machines. But it was Jobs, with his persuasive powers, who could take these creations and turn them into a business. It's like having a superhero team where one person has the super smarts and the other has the super business skills. Jobs convinced Woz that by working together, they could take their creations to a whole new level and share them with the world while also making a profit. This combination of skills was like magic, and it would eventually lead to the birth of Apple Incorporation, the company that would give us some of the most incredible gadgets ever, like the iPhone and MacBook. So, there you have it, the start of a beautiful, symbiotic friendship that would change the world of technology. Apple is born. So, there they were, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, two friends with big dreams and a fantastic computer on their hands. They had some money saved up, a pinch of ambition, and a dash of hope. But every company needs a name, right? It's like giving a superhero their iconic costume. They sat down and brainstormed. Should they go with a tetchy-sounding name like Matrix? Or maybe something futuristic like Executech? Nah, they wanted something special, something that would set them apart. So, they came up with Apple Computer. Now, you might be wondering, why Apple? Well, it's pretty cool. It's simple, like a fresh apple you'd pick from a tree. but it also had a touch of that 60s and 70s counterculture vibe. You know, the kind of feeling that makes you think of young people challenging the status quo. It was like a rebel with a cause. Imagine if Superman decided to wear a cool t-shirt instead of his regular costume. That's what Apple Computer was all about. It was friendly, approachable, and a bit unconventional. But it also meant business. It was the perfect name for a company that would change the world. And just like that, Apple was born. They didn't know it yet, but this simple name would become a symbol of innovation, creativity, and thinking different. It was the start of an incredible journey that would give us iPhones, iPads, and MacBooks, and revolutionize the way we live and work. So, in the world of technology, Apple was like a superhero with a cape ready to save the day. Ron Wayne joins. Okay, so picture this: you've got Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, two brilliant minds and friends. They're all set to create the future of computers with their Apple project. But there's a twist in the story. These two pals needed someone with a bit of wisdom, someone who could step in when they had disagreements, which, trust me, happens in the world of business. That's where Ron Wayne comes into the picture. Ron Wayne was not just any guy. He was a middle-aged engineer working at Atari, the famous gaming company. He was like the peacemaker, the wise old wizard in a group of young, enthusiastic adventurers. Jobs and Wozniak knew that to build something extraordinary, they needed all the help they could get. They needed someone who could make sure their ship sailed smoothly through the stormy seas of business decisions. So, they asked Ron Wayne to join their team. But, of course, you don't just ask someone to be part of your adventure without an offer, right? So, to sweeten the deal, they said, Ron, how about we give you a 10% share in our brand new company? It was like giving him a special key that could unlock a world of possibilities. So, Ron Wayne became their tiebreaker, their mentor, and their guide. He was the person who could step in and say, hey, let's do it this way, when Jobs and Wozniak couldn't agree on something. He brought stability to their growing enterprise. In many ways, Ron Wayne was the Gandalf to Jobs and Wozniak's Frodo and Sam. He added a touch of wisdom and experience to their journey, making sure they stayed on the right path. And with a 10% stake in the company, he had a piece of the treasure as well. Demonstrating the Apple I? Okay, so we've got Woz, the engineering genius, quietly working away on what would become the Apple I. At the same time, he's got a day job at Hewlett-Packard, HP. Now, picture this. You've just built something amazing, something that could change the world of computers. It's like having a secret treasure, and you can't help but want to share it with the world. Woz felt the same way. He believed it was his duty, like a superhero revealing his powers, to show HP what he had created while working for them. Imagine taking your masterpiece to your bosses and saying, "Look what I've made." It was a big deal. Now, HP was no small player in the tech world. They were like the giants of the industry. So when Woz demonstrated the Apple I to his managers at HP, you can bet he was both excited and nervous. He probably felt like a magician revealing a new magic trick to the masters of magic. But here's where the story takes a turn. HP, the big tech giant, said, "Thanks, but no thanks." They didn't see the potential in Woz's creation. It's like showing a beautiful painting to an art gallery, and they say, it's not quite what we're looking for. So they decided not to pursue the design. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, oh no, what a disaster. But guess what? This was actually a turning point, a bit like a superhero origin story. HP's decision freed Woz from any obligations. He wasn't tied down by them anymore. He was like a bird released from a cage, ready to soar to new heights. So, with HP out of the picture, Wozniak was free to join the Apple partnership officially. It was like saying, I'm all in. I'm joining this adventure with Steve Jobs, and we're going to change the world. And little did they know, they were about to do just that with their Apple journey. The partnership agreement. Imagine it's April 1, 1976, and Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ron Wayne are sitting down to make things official. They're about to embark on a journey that will change the world of technology. But before they dive in, they need to set some ground rules, like the rules of a game. So, they create something called a partnership agreement. This document is like a roadmap for their new company. It's all about defining who does what and who gets what. Imagine it's like writing down the roles in a play. Steve Jobs might be the lead actor, Steve Wozniak is the genius behind the scenes, and Ron Wayne is like the director making sure everything goes smoothly. Their roles and responsibilities are clearly defined in this agreement. Steve Jobs, the visionary, takes on marketing and electrical engineering. Wozniak, the tech wizard, is responsible for electrical engineering. And Ron Wayne, the peacemaker, focuses on mechanical engineering and documentation. Now, this partnership agreement is super important. It's like setting the rules for a game, so everyone knows how to play and what to expect. You see, when you're starting a company, it's like starting an epic quest. And just like in an epic quest, everyone needs to know their part to make sure everything goes smoothly. Wayne's withdrawal. But here's where the story gets a little tricky. Ron Wayne, the peacemaker, was initially part of this partnership. He even got a 10% stake in the company. Think of it like he's holding a piece of the treasure map that leads to the ultimate goal. He's got a say in important decisions. However, sometimes things don't go as planned. In this case, Ron Wayne decided to withdraw from the partnership. It's a bit like a character in a story deciding to leave the quest. You might be wondering, why would he do that? Well, you see, Ron Wayne had concerns. He was worried about being personally responsible for the company's debts. It's like being on a risky adventure where you could lose your own treasure, not just the company's. He had some gold coins hidden away, and he didn't want those to be at risk. So in the end, he decided to step away. He exchanged his 10% stake for a sum of money and left the partnership. It's a bit like leaving the quest to keep your own treasures safe. Ron Wayne was no longer part of the Apple adventure. And that's how it went down. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and the new company continued their journey without him, not knowing that they were about to change the world with their Apple story. Orders from the Bite Shop. Picture this, you've just created something amazing, like the Apple One computer, and now someone is interested in buying it. That's exactly what happened to Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Paul Terrell, who ran a place called the Bite Shop, took a look at their creation and was pretty impressed. It's like someone recognizing a hidden talent you have. Terrell wanted to buy not just one or two, but a whopping 50 of those Apple One computers. But there was a catch: he wanted them fully assembled and ready to use. That's like saying, I love your delicious pie, but I want you to deliver 50 of them fully baked and ready to eat. Now, for Jobs and Wozniak to make these 50 computers, they needed parts. Lots of them. That means they needed money. Here's where it gets interesting: borrowing money and buying parts. to make those 50 Apple I computers and deliver them within 30 days, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak needed cash. So they did what many people do when they're starting a business. They borrowed some money. Imagine it like this. You have a great idea to start a lemonade stand, but you need money to buy lemons, sugar, and cups. So you ask your friends or family for a little help to get started. That's what Jobs and Wozniak did too. One friend, Alan Baum, and his dad agreed to loan them $5,000. It's like getting a loan from your buddy's family to start your lemonade stand. Then Jobs tried to get more money from a bank in Los Altos. Banks are like the grown-up version of your piggy bank. But in this case, the bank manager looked at Jobs and said, "Sorry, no." Next, they went to a place called Haltech Supply. It's a bit like a magical store where you can get the best lemons and sugar. They wanted to give a part of their new company to Haltech Supply in exchange for the parts they needed. But unfortunately, the owner thought these two young folks seem a bit too scruffy and said no. Then Jobs talked to Alcorn at Atari, who could provide them with chips. It's as if they were asking for the secret recipe to make their lemonade better. But Alcorn said, "Sure, we'll give you the recipe, but only if you pay us up front." Finally, after all these adventures, they met with the manager of Kramer Electronics. Kramer Electronics was like a store with all the secret ingredients for their lemonade. This manager decided to give them the parts they needed and said, "Okay, we'll give you the secret ingredients, and you can pay us in 30 days. With that, they got what they needed to make those 50 Apple I computers. It's like finally getting all the lemons, sugar, and cups for your lemonade stand. And they were ready to make their big delivery to the bite shop. Just imagine it. They were about to hand over those 50 fully assembled Apple I computers to the bite shop, and their journey was just beginning. Assembling Apple I. So, there they were with an order for 50 fully assembled Apple I computers. But remember, these were not like buying a toy or gadget from a store. Each computer had to be put together by hand, sort of like assembling a giant puzzle. The place where all this assembling happened was Steve Jobs' family home in a town called Los Altos. Imagine your house turning into a mini factory for building something amazing. Jobs and Wozniak, along with their friends and family, came together to create these computers, just like a team of superheroes coming together to save the day. They needed a lot of space to do this work, right? Well, Jobs had an idea. His dad, Paul Jobs, who usually fixed old cars in his spare time, decided to pause his car fixing side business for a while. He generously offered his garage and a part of their house to be used for assembling these computers. Think of it like this. You know when you're building a massive Lego structure and you need plenty of room on the floor to spread out all the pieces and put them together? That's what they did, but instead of Lego bricks, they had computer parts. Jobs' home was buzzing with activity. Imagine tables filled with computer components, people soldering chips, connecting wires, and making sure everything worked perfectly. It's almost like a combination of crafting and science, but on a much larger scale. Now, it wasn't just Jobs and Wozniak working on this. They had their friends and family helping out. If you've ever had a fun crafting day with friends and family, it's a bit like that, but with a very special project in mind. And there's something really cool about this. Even Jobs' pregnant sister, Patty, joined in to help. Everyone pitched in and did their part to bring the Apple I computers to life. It was like a big family and friends DIY project, but with the result being a groundbreaking computer. The next time you're working on a big school project with your friends and family, think about how Jobs and his crew turned his house into a computer assembly line. It's a fantastic example of what you can achieve when everyone comes together and works as a team. Quirky diets. All right, let's dive into something a bit unusual, but it's part of what makes Steve Jobs a fascinating character. We all have our quirks and unique preferences, right? Well, Steve Jobs was no exception, and one of his quirks was his eating habits. Now, have you ever heard of the term fruitarian? No, it's not a superhero who eats fruits. It's actually a diet. A fruitarian diet is when a person mainly, or sometimes only, eats fruits. It's quite different from what most people eat daily. Picture this. Steve Jobs told his mom that he was a fruitarian. It's like telling her, "Hey mom, I'm only going to eat fruits from now on." You can imagine her raising an eyebrow or two, right? But even though Jobs had these unusual eating habits that might puzzle most people, his passion for Apple was unwavering. It's kind of like having a friend who has some very unique tastes in food, but is still the same great friend you know and love. This passion for Apple was like a fire burning inside him. It's almost like when you find something you really love, whether it's a hobby, a sport, or a subject you enjoy studying, and you're so focused on it that nothing else really matters. In Jobs' case, his passion was building and selling computers. So, next time you encounter someone with unique eating habits or quirks, remember that it's their passion and character that truly define them, not what's on their dinner plate. And just like Steve Jobs, you can have your quirks and still achieve incredible things when you put your mind to it. Marketing and logo. Alright, let's talk about how Apple presented itself to the world. Imagine you have a cool product, like the Apple I computer, but now you need to show it off to the world. That's where marketing comes in. Marketing is like making sure people know about your product, kind of like telling your friends about a new video game or toy you discovered. And when Jobs and Wozniak introduced the Apple I, they wanted to make it look like they were a real serious company. So they didn't just say, "Hey, we've got this awesome computer." They went all out. They hired an answering service, which is like having a secretary to answer phone calls and make them sound super professional. It's like having your own personal assistant. But they didn't stop there. They even had a logo, which is a special design that represents a company. Now, imagine you're in school and you have a badge with your school's logo on it. That logo shows that you belong to your school, right? Well, Apple wanted a logo to show that they were a part of the computer world. This logo was designed by Ron Wayne, who was one of the early members of the Apple team. It's kind of like creating your own superhero emblem that represents your team. The logo they chose was an image of Isaac Newton sitting under an apple tree, with a famous quote from a poet named Wordsworth. It sounds fancy, right? And here's a fun fact. They priced the Apple I at $666.66. Yes, it's a lot of repeating numbers. Sometimes, companies use prices that look a bit unusual because they want people to remember them. So, Apple went with this unique number, and it worked because years later, an original Apple I computer was sold at auction for a big amount. So, when you're showing off something you're proud of, like your art, your science project, or your cool Lego creations, remember that it's not just about the thing itself, but also how you present it. Just like Apple, you can make things look super cool and professional. It's like dressing up for a special occasion you want to make the best impression. Personal Computer Festival. So, remember how we talked about the Apple I and how Jobs and Wozniak were showing it off to the world? Well, they got the chance to do it at a big event called the Personal Computer Festival in a place called Atlantic City in 1976. Now, think of this event like a huge fair where people from all over come to show their incredible inventions. In this case, it's all about computers. The Apple one was like a star at this festival, and everyone was excited to see it. But here's the twist. It had some competition. You know how when you enter a talent show, you're up against other talented kids who can sing, dance, or do magic tricks. Well, the Apple one had some rivals. One of them was the IMSA i8080, and the other was the SOL20. These competitors were kind of like fancy sports cars compared to the Apple one. They looked sleek, polished, and well-designed. It's like comparing a homemade go-kart to a super cool, shiny race car. Despite this, the Apple one had something special that made it stand out. While it might not have looked as fancy as the others, it had a brilliant mind behind it, Wozniak's engineering genius. It was like having a secret superpower. So even when you're up against competition that might look flashier or cooler, don't forget that what really matters is the unique talent, creativity, and hard work you bring to the table. Just like the Apple one, it's what's inside that truly counts. Well, dear wealthy youngsters, we've reached the end of this chapter, but what a journey it's been. From the clash of ideals between Woz and Jobs to the creation of Apple Computer, this chapter has been a whirlwind of innovation and passion. We've witnessed the birth of the Apple one and its fascinating journey from concept to reality, and it's just the beginning. But fear not, our adventure doesn't end here. There are more exciting chapters ahead, waiting to unfold the incredible story of Apple Incorporation. So keep those imaginations soaring, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next chapter for more tales of inspiration and groundbreaking inventions. Until then, take a deep breath and get ready for what lies ahead. See you in the next chapter.